In a 10-number station. When Fallout 3 first released back in 2008, we were filled with quite a few questions. Will the Queen die on March 19, 2014? Will Britney Spears win an Oscar in 2023? And while these questions may seem random, all signs actually pointed on all fronts. But then, you hear the story of Fallout 3's special radio station. The conspiracy theory site Snopes.com pointed out that a couple of forum posts seemingly showed Fallout 3 predicting the future. Not only the exact date and time of Gary Coleman's death, but the US oil spill that was taking over the news for a few months around the summer of 2010. How did they do this, you ask? Via secret radio transmissions in the game. In-game, the radio station Galaxy News Radio is hosted by a guy called Three Dog. The creepypasta that originated this story follows the protagonist who ends up killing Three Dog. If you do this, he's then replaced on the air by his assistant Margaret. If you then skip past the Galaxy News Radio missions and then destroy Raven Rock, GNR will occasionally turn into a numbers station. These moments supposedly feature the voice actor of Three Dog reading out numbers in a sad-sounding voice. These are then followed by a string of Morse code. It predicted the Queen dying in 2014, Britney getting an Oscar, but unless the Queen was replaced by an animatronic in 2014, it seems to be entirely fake, which it is. In at 9, NES Godzilla. NES Godzilla's creepypasta is a very long pasta about, well, NES Godzilla. Originally written by Cosby Dapp on Bogleach, this pasta is known for both its length and for its extremely heavy imagery. It is so long, in fact, that I had to be split into sub-pages on the creepypasta wiki. Unlike other video game creepypastas, the main character actually rationalizes the events in the game. Other creepypastas also use the hyper-realistic elements, but this one mainly uses it just 2 times in the entire story, only using the element in the final creepy world. It doesn't use too many cliche elements, really only one in the ending, but even then it's not overused. The story has a captivating plot, great and spooky villains, and other things that enhance the experience of reading it, which is why it's a classic and favorite to many. But due to its length, I can't really provide a proper synopsis, and instead urge you to read it online for yourself if you have the time, which it's the summer, so you do, okay? You're watching this YouTube video, so yeah, you have the time. It's creepy, it's weird, and it will make you thankful for modern gaming in all the best ways. In at 8, Pokemon Black. Releasing before the main series Pokemon title of the same name, Pokemon Black is the story of an odd bootleg game cartridge the author found at a flea market. The game started with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar intro screen, however, the press start screen had been changed. It said Black version under the Pokemon logo. The game started with Professor Oak's speech, and then it quickly became evident that the game was essentially Pokemon Red version. After selecting your starter though, if you looked at your Pokemon, in addition to Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, you had another Pokemon called the Ghost. The Pokemon was level 1. It had fright of the ghosts they are encountered in Lavender Tower before obtaining the Sylph Scope, and it had one attack, Curse, but not the one you're thinking of. Defending Pokemon were unable to attack Ghost. It would only say that they were too scared to move. And when the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. The cry of the defending Pokemon could be heard, but this time it was distorted. And then when everything came back, the defending Pokemon would be gone. If you use this in a battle against a trainer, where the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would appear in the corner, they would actually have one fewer Pokeball. The implication being that the Pokemon was killed, and it only gets darker from there, okay? There are no Reshurams in this Pokemon creepypasta, so if you want the whole thing, go read it for yourself, because again, it's kind of a longer one.
At number 7, we have Red Army. The guy's checking out a garage sale, and he comes across a copy of Call of Duty World at War, and then decides to buy it. When he gets home, he pops it in, and something very strange happens. The game is super graphic. Like when people die, they cry out brutally. It's so graphic, the game is hard to play. This continues until he gets to a level called Auschwitz. In there are rows upon rows of bodies laying on beds. All of them are emaciated to the point where they almost look like skeletons. Some of them are still alive. It is extremely disturbing. He exits out of the gameplay to see how many missions there are, and there are hundreds of them, and all of them coincide with different dates for different war crimes that happened during World War II.
And at 6, Super Mario 666. The writer of this story says that recently a home in their neighborhood had mysteriously been destroyed. The newspaper says that it was an explosion started from a gas leak in the house, but who's to say? Unfortunately, no one in the home survived, but one day a friend came to his house rushing over, saying that he had found something important. His friend was nearly out of breath from sprinting all the way to his house, but he had found something in the rubble of the home. It was a copy of Super Mario 64. While you were going around in the rubble of a exploded house beats me, but you know, creepypasta. Although the numbers on the cartridge weren't 64, instead it was 666. They immediately put the game in and started playing, and the boys were greeted with a sign-in post that read, "King Babam is dead. Now his legion of followers are lost without purpose. They can only do what they know best." That's when they began to hear this ticking noise, and no, not a mysterious one. As a Babam walked onto the screen, its eyes were red and it was staring directly at the two boys. The sound began to pick up speed. Tick, 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 tick. That's when they realized that the game was responsible for that mysterious explosion. They sprinted out of the house only for moments later to have history repeat itself, and now his home had as well erupted into flames. Firefighters sorted through the rubble, but the only thing they found was a still intact Super Mario 666. And at 5, Charizard! I know you're looking at me weird, but please don't. I'm not meant to look like this. I used to be so happy. My friend loved me so much, but he would always hang out with his Charizard instead of me, since it was his starter after all. But eventually, it ended up dying in a gym battle. He cried all day. But he thought that another one would fix it, so he went and got another, but he is already carrying 6. I told him he could put me away for a little. All I wanted to do was see him happy, so he did, but it was a very, very long time. While on the PC I could feel myself warping. It sounds strange, I know, but all I could feel was my skeleton being pushed and pulled in every direction. At first it seemed like there was no point to this, but over time, the others in the PC started doing the same. They each started warping into something twisted. Something we all wanted to be for our friend, our trainer. Eventually, we all warped into variations of the Pokemon our trainer had lost. We were all deformed Charizards combined with our original forms. I used to be a Bulbasaur, now I'm a Charizard. Kind of. And at 4, Polybius. This story tells of an unheard new arcade game appearing in several suburbs in Portland, Oregon in 1981. This would have been something of a rarity at the time, and the game is described as proving popular to the point of addiction, with lines forming around the machines often resulting in fights over who would play next. I mean, if you're in a line, I don't know why you're fighting over who gets to play next, but that's aside the point. The legend describes how the machines were visited by men in black who collected unknown data from the machines, allegedly testing responses to the game's psychoactive effects. Players supposedly suffered from a series of unpleasant side effects including seizures, amnesia, insomnia, night terrors, and hallucinations after playing the game, and approximately 1 month after its supposed release in 1981, Polybius is said to have disappeared without a trace. So good luck finding one, because you can't, because it disappeared without a trace. And it's not real. And at 3, Deathmatch Mysterious Player. I loaded onto a server in Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, and I went to shoot my opponent, but nothing happened. I said hey and got no response, he just walked past me. After a while I got tired of chasing him and just started to explore, but then I see in chat that he said he has a new victim for a surprise. I yell asking what surprise, but he said all in good time. I tried logging off, and I wasn't able to. I also haven't been able to leave my computer. He walked over to my avatar, dropped something at my feet, and then logged off. It was some form of modded weapon or something that claimed it caused the players in the server to remain trapped. But since there was no one else, it was just me. I was stuck. Forever. But ultimately in at number 2, Herobrine. It's Herobrine. You know what this is, okay? I'd recently spawned in a new world in single player Minecraft. Everything was normal at first as I began chopping down trees and crafting a workbench. I noticed something move amongst the dense fog. I thought it was a cow, so I pursued it, hoping to grab some hides for armor, but it wasn't a cow. Looking back at me was another character with the default skin, but his eyes were empty. I saw no name pop up and I double checked to make sure I wasn't in multiplayer mode. He looked at me and then quickly ran into the fog. I continued on with the game as I expanded the world, and I saw things that seemed out of place for the random map generation to make. 2x2 tunnels, small perfect pyramids made of sand in the ocean, and grooves of trees with all of their leaves removed. I would constantly think that I saw the other player in the fog, but whenever I looked in that direction, he wouldn't be there. I saved the map and went on the forums to ask if anyone had found this mysterious player. I received a PM from the username Herobrine containing one word: stop. About a month had passed until I heard from someone again, and it was revealed to be the brother of Notch, the game's developer. I personally emailed Notch and asked him if he had a brother, and his only response was I did, but he's no longer with us. Finally, in at number 1, Sonic.exe. The original Sonic.exe story centers around Tom, a young man who was a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, especially the older games. He claimed that he had not played any glitchy or hacked games before, though he admitted that he didn't want to after an experience he had. He then proceeded to recount this experience, explaining how he received a CD and an accompanying letter from his friend Kyle, begging him to destroy the disc before it was too late and to not play the game, but ignoring his friend's cards warnings, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't have a story. Tom played the game and began to encounter odd, somewhat disturbing phenomena. From a title card featuring an evil-looking Sonic with bloody eyes and glowing pupils with a wide smile, to the presence of a file select screen similar to that of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. As he picked the only available character Tails and began the first stage, titled Hill Act 1, Tom continued to find more evidence that there was something wrong with the game, namely copious amounts of dead animals, which yeah, not normal in a Sonic game. They were all murdered in gruesome ways, and eventually he encountered Sonic at the end of the level, standing completely still and with his eyes closed. And I'm sure you can see where this is going. Fun fact, we actually played the game version of this on the channel way back in 2019, and I actually filmed a segment for that video, which would have been my first video on this channel, but I didn't react well to the game. I mean, I wasn't really all that scared and basically got the same ending as everyone else.
At number 10, we have Black Ops Hell. This creepypasta starts like a kid's dream. The main character hears about a new Call of Duty coming out. This one is the first Black Ops. This is a big time release in the series, but he can't wait to get it, so he decides to try and find an online dealer to get a bootleg copy. People break street dates all the time, so what if there's someone out there who's burning copies and selling them before everyone else can buy them in stores? If he got this, he would be the coolest kid in school. Luckily, our narrator finds someone online who specializes in bootleg copies. This guy's name is Bootleg Bill. Well, with a name like that, you expect he would be very good at his job. So our unnamed main character decides to go visit this guy to see if he can get a copy of this game. And strange enough, Bootleg Bill gives him a copy for free. When the narrator returns home, he pops into his Xbox 360 and immediately starts playing the game. First thing he does is go to play zombies, but something strange happens. There's a new map that he's never seen before, and the name is just Ads. He starts playing the map, and partway through he notices that the zombies are all actually devils in Russian army uniforms, and then the character that he's playing gets its legs grabbed by hands that are coming out of the ground, and then he gets pulled into a new map. This new map looks like Hiroshima after the bomb got dropped on it. He explored the map a little further and then came across a sign that was written in Japanese, but it translated to, "How does it feel to be in hell, Zach? How did the game know his name?" At number 9, we have Level 99. This creepypasta is about the Black Ops 2 zombie mode. There was a legend that there was a glitch in the game to get you to a new location. You have to play to level 99 on the map Transit, and when the bus arrives, you get on that bus and it takes you to a new destination. Our writer spent one summer night doing this with all of his friends, and when the bus arrived, they had to ride it for about 15 minutes before they ended up in a new area. This new area had such good graphics that it looked like real life. Then text popped up on the screen that said, "Kill the innocents." Then an arrow directed them into a home where a couple was sleeping soundly. One of his friends shot one of the people sleeping, and they all asked him why. He said, "Well, it's just a game." But was it? At number 8, we have Modern Warfare Suicide. This story follows a guy who just moved into his own place, and all he brought with him was an Xbox 360 and a few games. Eventually, he beat all the games, so he went to his local independent game shop to buy a copy of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. But the cover of the game had words written on it in a black Sharpie. It said, "Nick's game returned if found." He started up the game and found that all the death was hyper-realistic. The people were screaming so loud he could hear it over his gunfire and the other NPCs talking to him. It was so disturbing that he shut it off. A couple weeks later, he tried to play it again, but things got even worse.
And at 7, the Tails doll. The Tails doll is the titular main antagonist of various creepypasta stories of the same name, as well as the urban legend that is also the Tails doll. It is a demonic doll designed in the form of Miles Tails Prower from the Sonic series, who seeks to defeat him. However, in the creepypasta stories, he's nothing more than a homicidal maniac who seeks to kill anyone who performs the Tails doll curse. I meant to say performs, but I don't care at this point. There is no definitive history to the Tails doll creepypasta, the most popular one being the Tails doll curse created by Rebecca G. A man came home from work with a gift for his son. He had picked up a new video game for him called Sonic R. It was a racing game, and when he gave it to his son as the gift, he was so excited to get it and actually to play it right away. Well, the son was, not the dad. That night though, he played the game with his son and they had a great time. A couple of days later, the boy was almost finished with the game, but he was told that it was time for bed. At around 2 a.m. though, father woke up and heard thumps on his door. He assumed it was his son getting up and asking him for something, so he told the boy to go back to bed. The thumping kept happening though, and eventually he saw Tails popping his head up constantly, every time. He got out of bed and slowly opened the door, and then he heard someone say, say very softly, "You are coming with me forever." And it was actually the doll. An evil, blood-covered, possessed little doll. Yeah, and it was the doll from Sonic R. It had to be. Of course it was going to be. Come on, we know how these work.
At number 6, we have Reich 6.66. A young boy and his friend were walking through the woods and they came across a copy of Call of Duty for PC just laying in the woods. One of them picked it up, took it home, and then popped it into their PC. A menu for the game popped up, but it wasn't like any Call of Duty menu they had seen before. There were a few select options. One of them was die/game, and another one of them was setup/death. He clicked on the die/game one, and he got a text message on his phone that said 666. This was followed by the game starting, and it was like a first-person shooter, but his character had no gun. He just had a knife, and his character was also laying on the floor of an empty room. All that was in the room with him was a teddy bear, which he then used the knife to cut open, and then this horrible screeching noise started. He immediately exited out of the game. He then tried another one of the game modes, and then Hitler appeared on the screen, making the same screeching noise.
Halfway through at number 5, Ghost Cupboard. Apparently in the Half-Life game for the PS2, there was a bug involving a filing cabinet at the Black Mesa base. When you approached the cabinet, it would run at you and follow you no matter where you went. This phenomenon became so popular it got dubbed the Ghost Cupboard, and was only found in the PS2 version of the game. This was somewhat true. See, the cupboard would only look at the player, due to the mechanic added by the game devs that allowed NPCs to turn their heads to face the player. This mechanic was simply added to the cabinet by accident. However, the ones who claimed the cabinet chased them had some strange things happen to their consoles, like the game being removed from the library, saves being corrupted, and someone's entire PS2 got corrupted at one point. But only if the cabinet chased you, which is weird.
At number 4, we have Death Day. A young boy, Jimmy, idolizes his grandfather. The two of them would play Call of Duty together, and his grandfather would tell him about old war stories from World War II. Right before Call of Duty World War II comes out, his grandfather passes away, but he left him a surprise gift. It was the new Call of Duty World War II, but it was a month before the game was actually released. Excited to play the game, Jimmy popped it in and realized something very strange. They started at the Battle of the Bulge, but from what he read about the game, it was supposed to start at the beaches of Normandy. Even weirder, the main character's name in the game was James Shepard, which was the same as his grandfather's name, and the character looked just like his grandfather. He was shocked, but he played through eventually to the point where they got to a concentration camp, and the scene was horrific. Bodies were everywhere, and for some reason he could smell it. It was just a game, but it smelled like there was dead bodies all around him.
And at 3, Mount Silver. Years before you meet Professor Oak, he trained Red and got into Mount Silver, but once Red gets there, he isn't heard from again. Oak travels there to see that Red has actually died, but his spirit is still there, and all it says is "help me." Oak tried to find another trainer worthy enough to make it to Mount Silver in order to free Red, the elite force positioned in the perfect place to assure that they are your final test before making the climb. When you finally make it, Red is surprised to see you, but without speaking engages in a climactic battle that wages for an hour. When you finally defeated him, he says nothing, but smiles as he leaves and can finally pass on, not being able to say, but showing you with his smile, "Thank you."
At number 2, we have Classified. Be careful what you wish for. This creepypasta takes place right after the launch of Black Ops 4. The writer was enjoying the game, but says that they were very frustrated. There was no campaign. It was kind of annoying. And then one day they booted up the game and there was a new selection on the main screen that seemed to be a campaign, but it wasn't called campaign, it was called Secrets. They selected it and it seemed to take place during the Vietnam War, almost like the other games didn't happen at all. Then it proceeded to show secrets, like government secrets. Things that conspiracy theories say are true, but here was the proof that those theories were actually true. He realized that all this stuff was real. Then he turned off his console. Then he was sent a video of a man trapped in a box getting shot. And right before the man died, he said, "You're next." And for the number 1 spot, we have Lucid. Alex was a young boy in 2009 and nearly died in a car accident. Lucky for him and his whole family, nobody was hurt. Being a young kid, he used this new lease on life to play as much Call of Duty as possible, and he actually got really good. He got so good that him and his friends started to win tournaments. They actually started to get a little bit famous, and then they got really famous, and then they became multi-millionaires. He talks about how they all became bigger and bigger streamers, about how they got tons of sponsorship money pouring into their lap, and his parents never needed to work another day in their life. And then we hear it from the parents' perspective. It's been 9 years, and Alex has been in a coma ever since the car accident. Alright everyone, that has been our list, and as promised, I'm gonna let you guys know what are the unreleased shooters you guys should be looking out for. I think first is a really easy pick. I'm gonna say Valorant. This is the big game that everyone is streaming right now. Well, if you have a stream key, you're streaming it. Now, it's obvious that all the big streamers are being paid to play this game, I know that, but this doesn't mean that this game won't be good. It's made by Riot, who developed League of Legends, and it's going to be interesting to see what the developers can do outside of making MOBAs. Next on the list, I gotta pick System Shock 3. Now, I don't know if this game will ever come out, but if you're familiar with the System Shock series, it laid the foundation for BioShock, which was one of the best games on the Xbox 360 PS3 generation, and the next one looks like it carries on the mantle that BioShock left behind. If you're into creepy sci-fi first-person shooters that have a demonic AI that wants to kill you, this will be a great game for you. And finally, keeping in the vein of single-player first-person shooters, I've got Atomic Heart. This game looks so cool. It's set in a surrealist version of the Soviet Union and seems like it wants to take the best features of, once again, games like BioShock and pulling in an absurd world like a Salvador Dali painting. And I even like the developer's name, Mudfish. It's so good.
And at 10, Pokemon Forgotten Yellow. After visiting my local GameStop, I had picked up 3 games at random out of the old Game Boy Games bin. After work, I took a better look at them and noticed that they were all kinda messed up. They each had a different color. The Pokemon Yellow cartridge was red. I took it and brought it inside, and luckily my Game Boy still worked. I selected a new game, however the actual game that loaded was the previous owner's save. A text box appeared with Professor Oak's name even though he wasn't around. He was talking about rain. And then that Jeff had blacked out, but this wasn't my save. How did it know my name? The character was named Arnold. The screen faded to black and I shut the Game Boy, but I could still hear Oak singing about the rain. I don't know why you could hear that considering how it was text, but whatever. And at 9, Pokemon Blood. Usually I like finding weird Pokemon games, and recently I found one called Pokemon Red Water. I'm seeing where this is going. But when the game loaded, it was called Pokemon Blood. Yep, there it is. I went to pick up my starter and got my usual selection, but they were all damaged. They had gashes and cuts all over. But I found out while playing that as it took damage, it lost skin. I said to myself that this shouldn't be possible as the game may have been a hack, but it was still using Pokemon Red as a base game, and that game doesn't have these capabilities. But the game heard me. It responded, "You're smart, but not smart enough." I turned the Game Boy off and looked around thinking this can't be happening, but then the Game Boy opened and turned on and said it is happening. I stomped my Game Boy to pieces, but I don't know if I'm safe anymore. And at 8, Pokemon Deadly Y. It was the last day of school and I was screwing around, but then I noticed the Pokemon Y game still in its case laying on the ground. I picked it up and the manual said, "My gift to you, noob." Whoever this noob was had left the cartridge, so I decided to see what kind of terrible team he had because I'm such a pro. The title screen looked terrible. It said press start to die, and the bottom screen had the number 666 along with 2 candles sitting between the numbers. When I clicked start the game, it flashed an image of dead people. I had to play it. I had to see what the hell was going on. His save file was missing, so I made a new one, but Oak was there instead of Sycamore. His face was distorted and he looked like he was going to die. Then he showed me Yveltal puking blood with bloodshot eyes and a bloody nose. Then he collapsed from his injuries. And it's 7, Zombie Box. I was playing an early test version of Half-Life Alyx, but somehow the game was totally different than what it was described. There were no enemies, it was just terrain and puzzles until I encountered the Zombie Box. When I came close to it, it flashed green as if turning on, and then zombies spawned a couple at a time. Since there were no enemies, I had stocked up on ammo, but the zombies kept coming. The longer they went on, the stronger they got, until the poison zombies started appearing. Then I had to run. They threw their head crabs at me, and the damn mouths on those things are terrifying. All I remember is turning around and seeing one right in front of me. Then I blacked out. And at 6, Pokédex. What do you really know about Pokemon? Let me tell you, Nintendo lies. I had recently got a copy of Pokemon X, but the start was like black and white, and instead of Zekrom or Reshiram, it was Banette. When the game started, all the NPCs would say either a letter from Banette's name, death is from the doll, or ask me to borrow an escape rope so that they could hang themselves. Dude, just get a noose on Amazon. At least they asked politely. If I gave them one, a live action scene would play showing them doing it. If I said no, they would say, "Screw you, won't you let me escape from living in this hell?" Professor Juniper was not at her lab, only a grave in her spot. It said that the world was being destroyed by the doll, and it told me to take one of the Pokemon to kill it. I picked Oshawott and walked out of the lab. I was instantly put in a battle with a level 100 Banette. It bullet punched my Oshawott and sent it flying off screen. and then it turned its gaze to me. Halfway through into number 5, Lavender Town Syndrome. The Lavender Town Syndrome was a peak in suicides and the illness of children between the ages of 7 to 12 shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan, back on February 27th in 1996. Rumors say that these suicides and illnesses only occurred after the children playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose theme music had extremely high frequencies that studies showed that only children and young teens could hear, since their ears are more sensitive. Due to the lavender tone though, at least 200 people supposedly committed suicide, and many more had developed illnesses and afflictions. The people who committed suicide usually did so by hanging or jumping from heights, but those who did not act irrationally complained of severe headaches after listening to the theme. Although Lavender Town now sounds differently depending on the game, this mass hysteria was caused by the first Pokemon game released, or so it's said. After the Lavender Town incident, the programmers had to fix Lavender Town's theme music to be at a lower frequency, and children were no longer affected by it. Although, of course, it's a creepypasta, this never happened, so yeah. And at 4 trapped in a cave. It was night, the wind was blowing ferociously, so I tried to find a cave. As I did, I saw a light nearby, and I hid to make sure I wasn't attacked, but I saw a terrible sight. A Charizard and what I can only assume was its trainer were nearby. The trainer was on the ground, missing both his legs and an arm, and the Charizard looked terrible. It was crying. I heard the trainer ask his Charizard, who he called Ruby, if she was hungry. She shook her head, but even I could hear her stomach rumble. He insisted that she tell him when she's hungry, since he wants to help, but she continued to shake her head, telling him she wasn't. He told her it was okay as he pet her with his one arm remaining. Ruby hugged him, her eyes getting watery. "Ruby, if you don't eat, you'll starve," the trainer said. Ruby began to cry hard, but her trainer reassured her that it's okay and that she had to eat. The man extended his arm towards Ruby, who stared back at him trying to hold back tears. She reluctantly opened her mouth while the trainer slid his arm between her fangs. "Go on," he says, and she did. The man went to sleep and Ruby cried even harder. The man went to sleep to conserve energy, and Ruby cried even harder because she knew what would happen the next time she got hungry.
At number 3, we have Respawn. A young boy meets someone through Call of Duty, and the two of them become great friends, but they never meet in real life. They play Call of Duty all the time together, and then one day, one of the boys just disappears. 10 years later, the boy is all grown up, and then he sees that his friend comes online. He hasn't seen this guy in 10 years, so he invites him to a game. He tries to talk to him, but he won't respond. He sends a message saying Mike broken. After gaming for a little while, he sends him another message that says coming to see you with his address. He is now terrified, so he reaches out to the little brother of this old friend who he used to be in contact with, and all the little brother says in response is run.
And at 2, Flash Caves. We all know that you don't need Flash to get through dark caves, but it certainly does help. However, if you decide to take the dark route, there is actually a trick that works with every Pokemon game. If you walk around for a while, you will eventually find a ladder that isn't actually on the map. It will play the walking downstairs sound 4 times, then ask where you think you are. Then you are transported somewhere. You'll know when you can see, and everything is in black and white. Eventually you'll find yourself a hole in the wall. Go through it and you'll be free, but you won't be able to talk to NPCs anymore. In Pokemon Yellow, your Pikachu follower will become a ghost from the Pokemon Tower, and everything will still be in black and white. The only place you can interact with trainers in Pokemon now is the cave where you use the glitch, and if you try to talk to trainers, all they will say is, "Where do you think you are?" and then you will hear the sounds from before, along with screaming and a thud. Finally, in at number 1, Save Me. After being interested with Lavender Town Syndrome, I got a copy of the original game off eBay just to see if it was real. When I got to Lavender Town, there were no NPCs, just one boy in the Pokemon Tower running in circles. He appeared on every floor, and whenever I interacted with him, he would just say, "Save me." Ghosts in the tower would even turn into this boy, having his cry be actual human crying. Now, I didn't mention this before, but my rival's name was Tyler because it was a suggested option, not because I chose it. But that's weird because this game is in Japanese. I get to the top floor and the room is shaped like a T, and remembering this, I ask out loud if it's Tyler. The child turns around and says yes, save me, then initiates a Pokemon battle, but he never threw out a Pokemon, he just stood there, waiting. I fainted him and all he said was thank you. I fall asleep after what felt like hours, but when I wake up, I'm in a car seat in the back of a car holding a different Game Boy in the parking lot of McDonald's. I get out of the car frantically, leaving the Game Boy there, and I got some change off the ground and used the payphone phone to call my girlfriend. She cusses me out and says that I should have told her I was leaving. At least she sold that damn Pokemon game I bought for way too much money last year. I had been dragged into the game, and now a kid had just taken my place. And it's 10 worth the wait. I got an email from my friend at Valve. He said that he had spent countless hours trying to figure out what was going on, but he had found a copy of episode 7. He had sent me a code and I loaded it into my Steam and launched the game, but the menu had a bloody crowbar and a head crab. And the launcher wasn't official. The name was just ep3.exe. The game started like any other Half-Life game, and the title said Half-Life 2 Episode 3 like it should. But when I loaded, I already had all my weapons. Normally you'd have to collect them, but I even had a fully charged HEV suit. I woke up in a shed with citizens begging me to leave them alone. I tried moving, but the keys didn't work. Then Gordon started walking on his own. Gordon grabbed a knife and then threw it at a citizen. They died instantly and blood flowed down their back. Gordon took the knife again, then cut open the citizen and put a live grenade into the cut. It exploded as well as the citizen, then he pulled out a shotgun and killed several people that he saw. The game started filling with static and then it said, the theme of this game is be patient. And at 9, what the actual F happened. When I was bored, I illegally downloaded the original Half-Life game. I started playing and during the sequence when you pushed the cart to the ray, a Vorticon fell into the cart but didn't despawn. It started attacking me. I thought it was a bug, but later in the game I forced a guard to open a door for me so I could get the shotgun early, and I tried to break a box but alien blood came out of it. The other boxes in the room didn't do that, only that one. I left and went to the elevator for the next level, where the fireproof door activated, but there was no scientist and no security guard, as if they had already died. I shared a save with others and they call me a liar, even though when I loaded on their computers, I see it, but they claim not to. I don't know what's going on, but I deleted the game after that. Number 8, Half-Life 2 Episode 3. I hope this letter finds you well. You may not have heard from me in a while, but let me explain. I've been hopping around in other dimensions, but I've experienced a critical change in my circumstances. My aircraft was shot down, but we don't know what could have done it. We are held up in some form of bunker and are waiting to board up the doors when it becomes a physical danger. We are worried of freezing to death in this blizzard, and if we aren't able to get food, we won't last for very long. We can hear something coming from outside. If you receive this letter, I may yet be alive. I am on planet unknown in dimension unknown. The planet and dimension are impossible to read. Please come find me soon. Yours in infinite finality, Gordon Freeman, PhD. And it's 7 Pokemon Bad White version. On September 5th, 2012, I had just gotten Pokemon White version for my birthday. I opened the box and there was no logos on the inside, just a completely white cartridge. I loaded it up and all the colors were diluted, like the saturation had been turned down a lot, but not entirely. There was already a save file with my name on it, and it said 7 hours played, and my Pokedex was nearly full. How in 7 hours could I have done all that, especially when I hadn't loaded the game before? When I loaded the game, I got a message saying leave me alone now, and then my Snivy ended up dying. It flashed a picture that made me sick to my stomach, enough that I could feel my lunch rise to my throat, but I managed to suppress it. A Pokemon battle initiated and it was something I had never seen before. It said it was a pit of, but its flesh was exposed and torn. It used Screech and that sound was unbearable. It curdled my blood and irritated my skin. Even after closing my DS, the sound kept playing. Only smashing it was the way to end it. And at 6, developer's own downfall. I was developing a mod for Half-Life 2, where a town would slowly be corrupted as you worked to fix it, but then the game started getting a mind of its own. It's driven me so mad that I only remember parts of it, but my therapist told me to write it all down, so here it goes. The brain inspector told me whatever I see in this mod was my own doing, and she even said she may not be what I made her to be, but all I can think of is my house on fire and that I can only move when she's not around. I kick and scream but to no avail, and the worst part is I don't know how to fight it. I feel things getting warm and my sight is fading to black. Doctor, what should we do? This kid's gone mad. Put him on ice. Time for a lobotomy.
Number 5, we have Black Ops 4 Nightmare. This creepypasta follows a boy who is so excited because he just got Black Ops 4. Of course, like any kid with a new game, he pops it in and starts the download, and as soon as it's finished, he starts playing. But as he starts playing, he gets this weird sensation. He gets this tingling, it progresses into a pain, and then it continues until it's a piercing pain. He stops playing the game and then the pain goes away. Then he starts playing again and then the pain comes back. He stops and it goes away again. The next time he starts playing, the pain progresses until he has a rash all over his body, and then he gets his parents to take him to the doctor, but the doctor claims that he's fine. When he gets home, he wants to test a theory. He thinks that Black Ops 4 is somehow causing his pain, so he starts the game up, and out of nowhere, he gets an intense pain over his whole body. He turns the game off, but the pain doesn't go away. It only gets worse.
And at 4 headcrab, I wake up. The last thing I remember is black. I do my morning routine and head out to the fields. The others are with me and we're having fun. The playground is quiet with everyone else gone. The invasion is over, the aliens went home, so we have to keep going, otherwise what was the point of surviving? After playing outside, we wash up and come back inside. My friends ask me what's on my head. I explain that it's my new hat, an alligator skin hat made in commemoration of surviving the invasion. They ask where they can get one. I show them to my shack where I keep my supply and open the door, and all the hats jump at the opportunity to find themselves a new home. They're head crabs, not actual hats.
And at 3, Ben drowned. I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all those old games of my youth that I hadn't touched in the last decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And while beggars can't be choosers, I was definitely over it. That weekend I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant parents. Before I left though, one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. I mean, there were no cars and there was only one table set up with random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I asked this man if he sold any video games, and he assured me that he'd be back in a jiffy, and then turned to head back into the garage. I looked around for a little while, and then I looked up and the old man was suddenly there again, arm's length from me, smiling. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me a old Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on it in black permanent marker. He then gave it to me for free, and there was only one save file simply named Ben. I felt bad for the man who was obviously a grandparent and going through a loss, but this story is way more sinister than that, and if you want to know more, you'll have to read it for yourself if you don't know it already, because again, it's long as hell.
And at 2 voices. I heard this thing every night, but the morning never comes. I am the hand of madness. The world around me is falling. The zombies growing. Faster. Faster. I am the savior of my people. My head hurts. I have not turned yet. I am your head. I am you. Get this thing off me! I am of the planet Zen. You are not going to rebel anymore. I have almost gone. Run, Alex. Run. No rebelling, Gordon. Alex is no more. You are no longer female. You are of planet Zen. You have died. To a headcrab. Finally, in at number 1, the Ghost Player. The story I'm about to tell you is very much true, and the memory still haunts me to this day. I had loaded up Half-Life 2 Deathmatch one day, and went on a server called Antilink, only one person on, which I was kinda wanting anyway. I go in and I spent some time looking for the player who was on. I found him, but he was hitting a wall like something was there, and he didn't like it. I killed him, but when he respawned, he resumed his previous task. I tried talking to him through the server chat, but got no acknowledgement or reply. I was a bit pissed since I had encountered something like this before. I let him do his crap, and after a while the crowbar hitting concrete got annoying, and I decided to follow him to see if he was trying to point something out to me. He even accidentally hit me, but didn't acknowledge he did so. I didn't shoot since I realized it was an accident. I followed him through the map, and he stopped at a corner and continued hitting, but of course, nothing was happening. I decided to walk away to collect some ammo. At one point I was walking across a catwalk. I saw him at a suit charger, but he wasn't using it, just looking at it. I threw a grenade down and he didn't even run from it. Boom. This kinda went on for several more minutes, and then some other players joined. I thought they would talk some sense into this crazy but they didn't. In fact, they didn't even seem to acknowledge him. If they killed him, it was an attempt to kill someone else. I tried saying something, but no one ever gave a reply. Everyone was too busy with something. Finally, the map changed. 10 seconds after everyone got onto this new map, the ghost player left. 10 minutes into the map he returned, and he did some killing, but no one but me fought back against him. I kicked his ass, and he quit again. He never returned after that. Number 5 immediately died. From the author Sanzo fanfictions on Wattpad, this author was at his friend's house. Him and his friend had been trading for hours, and when the author needed to leave, they made one final trade. My Pikachu for your Eevee? His friend said that, and then they agreed. They traded, but when he did, a message appeared on screen saying, "You'll regret that. You'll regret what you did." After he left, he got a text from his friend reading, "That Eevee you sent me is acting weird. It keeps saying it doesn't want to fight." The next day, the author went back over to try to figure it out for himself. himself. The text on screen did indeed say I don't need to fight, but then it said Eevee learned immediately die. He showed this to his friend and his friend snatched the DS from his hands and proceeded to use the move. The animation was similar to Slash, but first Eevee had taken out a sword and ran at the opposing Pokemon. When you could see the Pokemon again, his eyes were dark and bloodshot, and there was blood pouring out of his mouth and pooling on the ground. It had its neck snapped as well. It smiled though, and it had very sharp teeth. It stumbled backwards and text appeared on screen saying game over, you died, and then the screen went black. They stopped playing Pokemon, but years later they laughed over the experience and blamed their imaginations. When they went back to play, they played the same game. The game loaded and said you are unable to play, you died, game over, you died, immediately die. The screen flashed and the author's friend passed out. The thing is, his friend never woke up. When I read this, I felt like I was watching a horror movie. Not because it was intense or suspenseful, but because I kept yelling at the characters not to do stupid crap. Like, come on, really? A move appears called immediately die and you decide that it's a good idea to use it? Then you go back to the same game years later? All of these people in these creepypastas are idiots, I swear. Number 4, the secret evolution of Eevee. Coming from Lucas Veta on Taringa, this creepypasta is originally in Spanish, but luckily Google Chrome has the ability to translate pages, so I've had to modify some parts because the literal translation is a little rough in English. The author was playing a Pokemon Red emulator on his PC and was about to take on Misty. He wanted to look around for people handing out items and such first, however, to help in the fight. When he entered one house, the house was empty. No sprites, no bookshelves, no furniture, nothing. After he took one step further, an old man appeared in front of him. I have found a mysterious egg. Do you want it? Obviously, the author said yes, despite the very creepy circumstances. Take it and never return. As soon as he says this, the author began to spin around as if he had been using an escape rope and was brought outside of the house. The house was also gone. The egg hatched immediately and an Eevee popped out. No nickname option was given and it was put into his party instantly. The Eevee that entered his party was level 25 and was holding an item that was named Raystone plus Waterstone plus Firestone plus Darkstone equals definitive evolution. The user saved his game and went back to sleep. The next day he launched up the game and it was all real. He wanted to put Eevee away, but Eevee did not want to go into the PC. When he tried releasing it, the game said Eevee does not want to leave. The author gave up trying and went on playing. By the time he gets to the flying type gym, Eevee had pushed itself into the front of the party. They fight the first boy and Eevee is almost fainted, but the text said that Eevee wanted to win. The author used a move called Inner Darkness and the screen went black, then red, then black again. The Pidgey he was fighting was dead and the child screamed at the author. The Eevee then turned to the author and said, "Are you proud of me?" smiling with sharp teeth and a bloody mouth. Number 3, Pokepocalypse. This unknown author from videogamecreepypasta.tumblr.com is what some people might call a hacker. He creates ROMs of games after adding a few levels or more content, and he had started this with Pokemon Leaf Green. Since it was the last Pokemon ROM he was able to make, he wanted to make it special. So he changed the game entirely to revolve around a Pokemon apocalypse, and wanted to make Eevee the main character of the game. He made Eevee only able to evolve with a Moonstone and prevented all other evolutionary forms. This evolution was called Dark Eevee and only knew the move Curse. After all was done, he plugged the ROM into his Visual Boy Advance on his computer and started playing. The game started normally and the only starter was Eevee, but the professor started talking about depressing things the author never programmed him to say. When battling the rival, the Eevee knew 3 moves: Perish Song, Frustration, and Pain Split, none of which the author had programmed. Eventually, the author found a Moonstone and was able to evolve Eevee. At first, the Eevee was confused, but then asked, "Please don't change me, don't you like the way I am?" But being the idiot he is, as he admits, the author tried one more time. The Dark Eevee looked the way the author designed, except with bloody tail and ears, and a murderous expression on its face. How can you see a murderous expression in someone's face, let alone a Pokemon's face? Just wondering. He then fought Eradicate and Eevee fought without command, killed Eradicate and looked up at his master. "What's wrong, master? You created me. Do you not like the way I am?" After closing the game, Dark Eevee finds any way to see his master. And while you're hearing this video, it's probably finding a way to see you too. Number 2, Just Eevee. This author named Spotted Leaf, not Unlisted Leaf, on quotive.com said that Eevee is their favorite Pokemon. Well, it was. Having an action replay and wanting to test it out, they loaded up Pokemon Platinum and chose Turtwig. They went out to catch an Eevee and did so easily. The Eevee was female with a hardy nature and knew all the moves a normal Eevee would have. The author caught only 3 other Pokemon, one to be an HM slave. Eventually it got to a point where all team members who could evolve needed to for the sake of not using so many items. They evolved their Badoo, Turtwig, and then they got to Eevee. They didn't want to evolve Eevee because it was too cute, so they deposited it in their PC. They then went to catch either Dustox or a Beautifly, and caught a Dustox. The author beat the league and saved the game. They didn't play for a while, but when they went back to it a short time later, the only available box in the PC was box 13, and had Eevee and for some reason a random egg. The author went went to select the egg, but the screen turned black. When it came back, the egg was gone and the cursor was on Eevee. They tried to leave the PC, but the game wouldn't let them, or maybe it was something else not letting them. They brought Eevee into their party, but their Dustox was missing. He gets into a battle with Mantike and Eevee is sent out, which is odd since it wasn't the first in the party. The author checks their party and all of their Pokemon are paralyzed. The author tries to catch Mantike, but Professor Rowan said that this is not a time to use Pokeballs. They tried once more and actually caught the Mantike. However, when they checked the PC, it wasn't there. The author exited the PC and Eevee was standing beside them. It spoke and said, "You will love me and only me," and proceeded to start a battle. The author sent out Torterra and it was unable to move due to fear. The Eevee used Slash and killed Torterra. The author refused to send out another Pokemon, but the Bidoof HM slave was dragged out. The Eevee laughed and said, "You know what happens next." The Eevee killed Bidoof as well and asked the author to promise they will love her and only her. The author said no and Eevee used Slash. The game shut off and said that their save file is corrupted. Number 1. Spectorion. This unknown author from the Creepypasta wiki heard about a rumor that seemed to be in the same vein as Mew hiding under the truck. A hidden Pokemon evolution that was only accessible with Eevee and that could only occur after the Pokemon died. Curious by this, the author did some more research and found that Spectorion was a combination of the Eevee souls lost either during failed evolutions or when their trainer couldn't get to a Pokemon Center in time. Being curious and loving ghost type Pokemon, he decided to give it a shot. He knew that Pokemon has had some dark things in the past, such as Hypno leading kids into the forest or breeding between Pokemon and humans as suggested by the books in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. However, this was something else. The trainer caught an Eevee and brought it to level 50, constantly letting it fade to bring its friendship down to 0. As soon as it started to not obey, he brought it to the Elite Four. He let the Eevee faint and continued battling, never reviving until he fought the champion once more. After the battle, he got a message saying Eevee has died and was brought to a Pokemon Center immediately. Nurse Joy said, "We have tried all we could. We're so sorry for your loss," and gave him back his Eevee. The text appeared on screen saying, "Oh," as if an egg had started hatching. He was brought to an evolution screen where the lifeless corpse of Eevee remained. It fell apart and a ghostly vision appeared, with glowing white eyes and a red circle on its head. The colors of its fur appeared inverted and it looked angry. "How could you let me die?" it asked without leaving the screen. "You will pay." As the screen faded away, all the trainers in the Pokemon Center were surrounding the user and Spectorion was floating behind them. It said to do it and all the other patrons proceeded to beat the author until the screen went black. The whole time they were asking, "How could you let it die?"